Yakasish. We'll talk a little bit about the elderly themselves, what we do in the workshops, and then we're going to go and take a look in a few of the workshops. Please feel free and jump in with questions. I'm really happy to hear other people's questions and ideas. First of all, we'll talk about the history. We have been here for over 60 years. We're actually in our 62nd year. We were founded in 1962. Do you guys, I want to sit on bench by a school teacher named Mary Mendelow. She worked in a school nearby, and she would walk on her way to work. She'd walk through a park each day, and she'd see these elderly gentlemen who were essentially beggars. They couldn't afford their basic necessities. The country itself was very young, very focused on education, young people, infrastructure, security, different things like that, and the elderly often got left behind in the process. So she decided on her own that the elderly deserve better than that, and she was going to do something about it. So she took 9 of these gentlemen, and she started a book bindery, which is still running today. Originally, it was just one small room, and it was very successful for several reasons. One, it gave the elderly a way to earn money. It gave them pride in their work. It gave them a lot of self-satisfaction, which obviously you don't get when you're just a beggar on a park bench. Also, her students would bring books to be repaired, and it changed the young people's attitude towards elderly, and it showed them that elderly were a meaningful, purposeful part of society, as well as it entertained the elderly. They were always very excited for the young people to come and visit them. So it was very awesome for the day. We'll talk a little bit about history here and there, but currently we have 9 different art workshops with about 200 elderly.
Wow.
They come every day from Sunday through Thursday. They come from 8:30 till 12 noon, and they work in one of the workshops. A little bit about the elderly themselves. Who are these people? Where did they come from? So they come from about 24 different countries. They speak 12 different languages. Only one person currently here now was born in Israel. Everybody else is they're immigrants. But their immigration story was quite different than my own. My immigration story was very sweet and nice. My husband and children, we sent whatever we wanted ahead of time, and we got on a nice plane, and people were excited when we landed. And all of our financial accounts in America remained ours. But for most of our elderly, they come from countries where they had to flee. They oftentimes did not get to come with all their family. They only were able to bring what they could carry in their hands. There was no shipping things ahead. And they didn't come with money at all. Many of them, almost all of them actually, are academically trained individuals. We have everything from accountants, lawyers, doctors, nurses, engineers, teachers, professors, all different types of professions. But when they arrived here, it was very traumatic and they had nothing. And to start over again was very difficult. They didn't necessarily speak Hebrew either. To start their careers over was virtually impossible. Sometimes they were a little bit older, even like in their 40s or 50s, which is not old, trust me. But to start over again with a career it's more difficult. So they survived their day-to-day living, but they weren't able to save for their retirement. So now that they're of the age of retirement, they don't have financial means for their basic necessities. Which brings me to the 2 requirements to being an elderly artisan here. 1, you have to be above the retirement age, and 2, you have to be below the poverty line. Both of these numbers are set by the government when you come. 10% are from Ethiopia. Many of them actually walked here from Sudan. It was very treacherous. We might need, I'm not sure, somebody said textiles, like sewing. So I'm changing my, she's here today. She walked here from Sudan, and recently her daughter, she has where to go every day. When she comes home in the afternoon, she knows what she's doing the next day. And she's just very stability, right? It's the routine is so important for her, and the friendships. And she's a relatively quiet person, but she, it's a community, the warmth. We learned a lot about this in COVID. The financial benefits that we give the elderly was the most important thing that we offered. But COVID really taught us that the social benefits even outweigh that. We were closed for 2.5 months altogether for different COVID closures. And during that time, 40 of our elderly were not able to come back afterwards because just sitting at home alone for that long just destroyed them physically, mentally. It was just something they couldn't get over. The friendships, the warmth. So because of that, when the war broke out more recently, we were concerned about our elderly being home. And a lot of them live alone and they still don't know Hebrew. And it's very confusing and scary to be, especially the first days of the war when nobody really knew what was happening or what was going on. There were sirens here in Jerusalem and it was a very confusing time. So of course we stayed in touch with them, but we worked very hard to open as soon as possible. After the beginning of the war, we opened up actually on the 14th day of the war, which was pretty quick. We had a former Soviet Union, Ukraine, Colombia, South America, Venezuela. I'm thinking in terms of languages, Uzbekistan, France. Why did I say France? France. Where else? Italy. We have from Iran. States. I didn't say Ethiopia. Okay, I got 14 more to go. There is Russian. There's a lot of countries that end in stan. I know that. There's like Uzbekistan and young Ethiopian woman. He's Ethiopian, and he started talking to this young Ethiopian girl on the train. And it turns out she works in City Hall, which is directly across the street. And he was telling her about Yakasish and how she should come here and check it out. So she came one day and checked it out, and she wanted to do something to help. So now she does our translations for us. A lot of times when we need to give messages to the elderly and we don't have anyone on the staff who speaks Amharic, and they don't do, a lot of them are illiterate. So even though they understand Amharic, they don't know how to read and write it. So, and some of them know Hebrew and Amharic, but we want to make sure we get the message across properly. So she'll send us, we send her what we need said, and she'll send us a WhatsApp voice message, and then we can go around and play it for each of them. About something or whatever, she'll come. But stipend. This is money that gets deposited directly into their bank account. It's not considered charity. It's considered like payment for work, but it's not a paycheck. So there's no taxes or anything like that taken out. It's a stipend.
Very good.
We also give them a daily nutritious hot lunch. It's prepared here by our chef, so we know it's nutritional and we know it's to their liking. We take surveys, we ask them, you know, like in case we need to change things up a little. Their monthly health insurance premium. That way they have full access to the Israeli healthcare system. Subsidies, the things that are not covered by the health insurance. We're not healthcare providers, but we try and prevent them from needing so much healthcare. For the winter, we've been giving them bonuses because the cost of electricity has risen so much, and we want them to be able to stay warm. And whether they need it for electricity is to help them out through those cold months. This is for the war. We gave them 2 bonuses during the time of the war because a lot of them were afraid to leave their homes. And it's much more expensive to have things delivered. Transportation, and there being a siren, and they're gonna have to lay down on the street and whatnot. So besides the general worry was how they were going to have food, because for them that's a challenge for them. It's always a challenge, but when things happen it becomes a bigger challenge. So that was an issue for them. Outside of Jerusalem, we were in that city, lunch, whatnot, and then they come back to this place.
Yes.
So 80% of our budget comes from private donations and from grants we receive from different organizations, federations, foundations around the world. 17% of our budget comes from gift shop sales. Everything in our gift shop is handmade by them, so all proceeds go directly back into the program. And 2% of our budget comes from the government. That's what we receive as a grant from them. Our budget is individual donors and grants. It's like a combination of, I would say of that, probably about 60% are individuals and 40% are organizations.